The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
Calling out to God, calling out to Him from your depths of your soul has inherent and tremendous value. One of the individuals that I met at this wedding recently, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, was a boy named Reuven. Now, Reuven and I go way back. Now, when Reuven was there, I thought it would be very special for him to meet my uncle who was standing right next to me. You see, Reuven was a special boy. About 10 years ago, my mother, who was my office mate, she was the principal and I was the program director of the school, suddenly did not feel well. She called the doctor, and in the middle of school we rushed her to the hospital only for her to be diagnosed a few hours later with acute myeloid leukemia, a horrible and dangerous, fast-acting cancer that usually and typically can kill within 6 weeks. In fact, that's actually what the doctor had said. Barring a bone marrow transplant, and her being Sephardi, the likelihood of receiving one would be close to impossible, that she did not have much time left. We began a massive Tillim campaign in the school. The students rallied around her as the principal of the school, Joe's principal. It was all the students' principal. And there was a big rallying cry. And sure enough, just about 6 weeks later, Baruch Hashem, by a real, pure and true miracle, my uncle Mordechai was a perfect 10 out of 10 match. It was her only shot, and he was the perfect match. The only sibling that could have been able to do it. And she would then be given a transplant. And it was over the course of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that she had it. After the Chagim, after Sukkot, I came back to school. My mother had the transplant in Manhattan, Sloan Kettering, and I had spent most of the holidays over there, and I had come back to school. And the kids were looking to me to hear some good news, and I came back and I said, things are status quo. One boy came over to me, Reuven, and he said, I just want you to know, I've been davening for your mother every day over the last 3 weeks. Every day I daven extra special for her. I was mamish in tears. I called my mother. She wasn't able to speak at the time. And through text and phone, we figured out. She said, do me a favor, please get Reuven a prize from me. It would mean a lot to give Reuven a prize. So no problem. I called Reuven over to my office. I had a lot of prizes. I said, Reuven, pick any prize you want. He says, why? I said, Mrs. G said thank you, and she wants to give you a prize. So he was shy. I took a prize off the wall. I gave it to him, and he left with such a smile on his face. He walked down the hall. I'll never forget this moment. And just 2 weeks ago, I relived the moment with Reuven as I told him the story right in front of my uncle Mordechai, who was the bone marrow transplant donor. I said, Reuven, do you remember what you did next? He says, no, what did I do? I said, Reuven, you turned around, you walked back to my office, you put the prize on my desk, and you said, I didn't do it for the prize, I did it for Mrs. G. And I accepted the prize back. And it was the greatest moment in my chinuch career, in my chinuch life, to witness that pure tefillah. He's mamish davening for an influential figure in his life, his principal, his mora, his teacher. I was davening for my school mommy. And at that moment, I called my mother and I said, Mechila, but I'm going to put you on speaker because Reuven deserves to talk to you. And there in my office, I saw what pure love was for a student to a teacher. When Reuven began to cry and said, Mrs. G, when are you coming back to school? And Mrs. G said, because of your davening, I'll make it there one day. It took a little while, but thank God my mother was able to recover and came back to school. And although doesn't work in school regularly now, still does some side work for the school, involved in students' lives. And at that moment, at that wedding, the same day that I remembered a student who didn't have an easy road and asked me to be by his wedding, the same day that a student of mine unfortunately and tragically had passed away, did I remember the story of Reuven standing next to my uncle Mordechai, the donor. And I turned to Reuven and I said, I want you to know that was a big crossroads year for me. I was met with many different positions, rabbinic positions, business positions. I was not always destined to be in chinuch. I did not think I was going to be in this profession, to be quite honest with you. But if I had to make that decision again, I'd make it again because of you, Reuven. I said, Reuven, you taught me the power, what a teacher can do, the influence. You taught me that school is a city of refuge. School, that environment, that wholesome, safe environment, just like the city of refuge can allow for spiritual purification, the school can allow for a safety net for a child to make mistakes and pick the pieces up and feel good about themselves.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org